Real estate and custom cabinetry. How do they all fit together? Today, we've got a guest, Adam Allen from Prestige Woodworks. I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about custom cabinetry. Hey, what's happening? Hal Wilkerson here with the Hawaii Real Estate Roundup, and I am super stoked to have my guest today, Adam Allen, all the way from St. George, Utah. How you doing today, good sir?
Fantastic. It's a little warmer and less green here, but it's pretty nice. So we both live in beautiful parts of the world.
We do. And your part of the world is one of my favorite parts of the world to go to when I'm ready to put some skis on and do a little downhill bombing. But that's awesome, man. Well, Adam, dude, it's a pleasure to have you, good sir. For my viewers, Adam and I are a part of a group. We have a common business coach, which is kind of what brought us together. And Adam and I spent a little bit of time last week talking and getting to know each other a little better. And I thought, man, what a great opportunity just to bring Adam onto the show today to talk about his expertise, which is custom cabinetry. So I'm really excited to kind of delve into this little topic. Adam, tell me a little bit about yourself, good sir. Let's hear a little bit about you and Prestige Cabinetry or Prestige Woodworks.
All right, well, yeah. So Prestige Woodworks, we've been in business. We're about 11 years now in St. George, Utah. For those of you who don't know, St. George is a booming town. It used to be a small town, but it has been growing exponentially over the last several years. A lot of people moving from bigger cities, California, Texas, even New York, trying to find a more rural area. And they've been coming in and building just big, extravagant, amazing homes. And we get the pleasure of jumping in on those and building some gorgeous cabinetry, amazing woodworks, like to the nines. These houses are awesome, and we are very, very honored to be able to work on them.
Very cool, man. How long have you been building custom cabinets in St. George?
About 11 years. So we started, it was about the end of 2013 when we started getting the ball rolling, really.
Yeah. Right on. And you shared with me last week a pretty cool story about how you've kind of grown your business and how you've developed it. And but I'll pause there and I'll say one thing that we noticed right off the top is that we have a shared love for the acoustical guitar. Yeah, it's funny. We didn't even know, and we jumped on this Zoom together last week. We're like, hey, you got guitars? I got a guitar. That's awesome, man. What's your favorite kind of music to play, by the way, on the acoustic? Would you say?
It's interesting because I actually like really noisy music, but that doesn't go well on an acoustic guitar. But I have a lot of kids. I have 4.5 kids, one on the way, and I like to play music that they like. So honestly, a lot of weird Disney music, anything that will get their attention is what I currently like to play. I used to play a lot of just quieter kind of like emo music, which is what I enjoy playing, but I like seeing my kids' eyes light up.
Yeah. One of my top hits is Wheels on the Bus, hands down.
Very, very good. Yep.
In fact, I have a video of playing for my son, Wheels on the Bus, and he's just running around the room singing, and it's great. You know, that's about the top of my technical expertise with my guitar as well. I'm just going to say that. You know, I can throw a little more than words, you know, if need
All
be,
right.
to swoon the wife when needed.
There you go. Yeah.
So let's talk real estate and let's talk cabinetry. So for me, as a real estate guy, one of the things that I always know when somebody comes to me and they want to sell their house, generally the first thing I'm going to say is you want to spend money on the kitchen. The reason that is because kitchens and bathrooms sell houses. I mean, there's no getting around that. Now, you're doing custom cabinetry. I mean, you guys are building, you're not doing what did you call it? RTAs or anything like that, ready to assemble. You're actually doing straight up 100% custom boxes and everything, right?
Yeah. So we've got a shop, we've got 15 employees, and we're cutting, milling, and molding everything ourselves.
Where do you get your design inspiration from?
So obviously, you know, we live in the Instagram and Pinterest world. So a lot of stuff comes out of of that arena. We do work in tandem with designers quite often, but with a good 10, 11 years of experience, it's really fun to be able to be that professional. And we have our designer, Hannah. We love her dearly. She just loves to jump in and get that first draft built out. And her hope is that she gets it so well that a lot of her design aspects get to live on in the house. One big, huge point of pride for her is seeing her design become a reality, because seeing it on paper is one thing on the computer, and then getting out and seeing it in the home is just, it's kind of mind blowing. It's really nice.
So you have a designer, like an in-house designer, but obviously with 11 years of making custom cabinets, you've gotten a pretty good idea of what folks are looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hannah, with all of her knowledge, I worked in tandem with her for quite a while, and she kind of just adapted to the prestige way of building cabinets. And whenever there's not an exterior hired designer, an interior designer, right, that has been hired by somebody, most of our contractors and our clients rely on us to be the professionals, and it feels really nice when they are able to do that.
Let me ask you this: in your opinion, what do you think the value brings to, as far as an increase for a home, when you guys, like if somebody's going to, and I know you may not necessarily look through this lens like I necessarily do, but do you have any ideas or thoughts on what type of value add a nice, well done set of cabinetry and kitchen is going to do to the value of a home?
Absolutely. So it's really tricky. I do get to look through your lens quite often because I need to learn how to sell, right? And what I need to sell are the pain points of the customer. And the pain point of your customers is selling their house, right? So oftentimes our job is to help you either A, really, really enjoy your house, or if it's a spec home or you're trying to flip it or something, get it sold. Now, you've got comparables, right? So you're only going to sell your house for something near the comparables in that neighborhood. However, if your house exceeds all of those other houses, guess what's going to happen a heck of a lot quicker? You are going to sell that house much quicker than all of your neighbors, right? And we've even had recently a contractor who builds much smaller homes than we're used to working on. And he came to us, and when he came to us first, I was like, oh, he must be coming to us because we are really good with our processes, and we try to make sure and be on time and deliver and install as quickly as possible so that he can get done and sell the house. But I was super surprised to find out that that's not why he was chasing me. He was chasing me because he wanted to set himself apart from the other contractors in that neighborhood so that he could sell the home faster, because in his pocketbook, when he's doing a spec home, on average, he's spending about $5,000 a month in interest once it gets to that point of almost being completed. And if he can sell the home any faster, he's saving that money. So basically his push-pull in his mind, his pros and cons were, if I spend a bit more in cabinetry, but I sell it that much faster, I'm not out any money, and I'm not sitting on product that's not liquidated, which means I get the cash back much quicker. So as far as cabinetry in the home goes for real estate, it's a big deal. It is the only furniture-like aspect that is built into the house, right? It is the facelift of the home.
Yeah, no, I tell that's, and it's interesting to hear you say that all the way in Utah, because I literally use that exact same model as far as days on market, because yeah, when it comes to comparables, right, cabinetry is not necessarily going to put the value of the home over one or the other in most cases. What it definitely is going to do is it's going to help, that family. They're going to walk in, they're going to see something like what we were just looking at a minute ago, and they're going to say, yeah, this is what I want. And then boom, if they have a choice between that or something, from the mid 90s, it's a no brainer, right? So shorter times on market is definitely good. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? As far as home design has been, during pandemic, right? It was kind of like that gray, at least in Hawaii. I don't know what it was in Utah, but it was like that gray scheme, with like, you've got like the gray LVP, and you've got the sort of like the white countertops, and then, and maybe some gray cabinetries or things like that. for me, it was like, it looked good for like a minute, but then it's like, it's past, right? And so what are you guys, and so some people have gotten over it, and we are seeing some designs that are getting past it, but a lot of people are still hung on that. What are you guys seeing in Utah as far as design goes around cabinetry? What directions are folks going? Are they doing more natural oak wood? Are they getting a little more contemporary? Where are you guys going?
Yeah, so obviously there's a huge array of that, and it kind of depends on location. Like we've got some desert areas that are very earth toned and stuff like that. So like you'll see the same things in Hawaii, where certain areas and certain neighborhoods kind of have trends. But overall, there is a cyclical path if you look at trends in general. White never goes away. It does kind of ebb and fade a little bit, but it never quite goes away. So white's always around. We're still seeing a lot of white, but we are seeing it two-toned a lot more often with a lighter oak color. We are seeing some of the earth colors come back in, darker wood tones and stuff like that. The grays and the greiges are pretty much out. We haven't seen a lot of those lately. That cooler tone seems to be on the back burner for a little while, but obviously we'll see that come back around in the near future here again.
Yeah. I've noticed in the last, 3 or 4 years, like there's two-tone may not be the right word, but they'll have like sort of a darker color on the top and then a lighter color on the bottom. I've really, it done correctly, that can be a pretty nice touch. Have you seen any or done any of those at all?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do that kind of stuff all the time. More often than not, the island itself will obviously be a different color. We try to sway people towards wood. So for all of those people out there trying to sell a house or revamp a house, wood is going to take a beating much better than paint. Don't jump in and paint your island, because as soon as you start showing that house, it's going to get nicked and chipped and dinged. And guess what? It just kind of is what it is. If you take a nice car, I know you drive a Tesla, Hal. Park that Tesla in the middle of a house and just see what happens, right?
Did I tell you that? I don't even remember.
No, I'm really good at stalking people.
Nice.
So park that Tesla in the middle of the house and just see what happens. It doesn't even have to be a live construction site. You're still going to have people walking around, and that's just the heaviest traffic area right around that island. But we'll have that be one color, and then sometimes even all of the base cabinets around that will be the same color to match, and then the uppers and the tall cabinets will be some other tone to just kind of set it apart. And it's really fun when done well. It's really fun.
Right.
It can look quite terrible if the design is poor, for sure.
Absolutely. Tell me about the quality of craftsmanship, because a lot of people, I don't know, but sometimes people are more interested in the appearance more than they are necessarily the quote unquote quality of especially of the boxes, right? Because the boxes are, let's be real. Again, depending on the design type, but talk a little bit about quality and craftsmanship.
Okay. Yeah. Like you said, it's really easy to put on a good facade, right? Get that plastic surgery on the cabinets and make them look kind of good. But then you open and close them and they funk really hard and they don't function really well. And the glides are terrible. I think you and I was Facebook stalking you, Instagram stalking you, YouTube stalking you before this call, just so that I could get to know Hal a little bit better. And I actually scribbled down a little page of notes of core values that I think we align on.
Oh,
and
nice.
Quality is one of those. Yeah. So I watched a video of you and you were talking about quality of photos, quality of the representation for the customer, quality of staging the house with furniture so that you can teach the customer whether or not things are fitting. Like, your view of quality and respect for the customer is something we really care about with the quality of the product, right? It's one thing to go in and let's compare it to a car. You can go buy kind of a junker and it's going to get you from point A to point B for a really long time. And that's okay. And if that's what you want out of a cabinet, that's okay. Like, it's a box that you put your stuff in, right? But at some point, most people decide that they want a little more than a box. And that's where we come in. We want to make it awesome. And really where you're going to see, I think, the biggest change is in the hardware. Most people will run out and buy like 25-cent glides that have 2 plastic wheels. And when you open and close that drawer, it's just like kind of chintzy. Doesn't feel great. We skip right past that and go all the way to the top tier. Like, we just don't even bother with all the other stuff. So it's just the nicest, most expensive soft close undermount stuff, hardwood cherry drawer boxes. We offer other things in the drawer box range to help you save a little bit of money if you want to. But we pretty much start at the top of that quality level because it's what people really want most of the time. They want to come in and feel that luxury, especially in the kitchen and especially in the master bath. When you're trying to show a house, that's what people want to see. Like if they cook at all, even a little bit, they want to see that kitchen that they can see themselves in. And especially if they host at all, they want something that's a showpiece for those people coming to stay at their house.
And that's what Prestige Woodworks designs. And that's what you guys put together.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yep.
That's awesome. Now I remember from our conversation last week, you were telling me that you have some designs on expansion. But before I talk about that, I want to tell you one other thing that I really appreciated about our discussion was the fact that you're into lean manufacturing and efficiency. And so for our viewers and for my old world, before I got into real estate, I was in medical supplies. And specifically, I was in surgical medical supply. I was in all aspects of medical supplies, but surgical medical supplies is where we spend a lot of time. One of the things about a surgical suite is not too different from cabinet manufacturing. It's a manufacturing process. And so you're managing supplies and you're managing care and you're managing post-care and then you're managing waste. And so all of that stuff kind of flows into one big thing. And one of our big emphasis were lean processes. And specifically as it related, because the whole idea is essentially to increase patient care by reducing the time that care providers would have to focus on thinking about picking, pulling, preparing supplies to do their surgery. And I know you're probably, and our viewers are probably saying, well, what the heck does this have to do with cabinetry? But one of the things that we focused on was using the Toyota School of Management concept of lean, the whole like Six Sigma idea. And when you mentioned that you were a lean guy, and I think you've even been to Japan, you've toured a couple of Toyota. Tell me a little bit more about that experience in Japan. And were you actually at some Toyota manufacturing plants? Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. So it started about 8 years. I'm going to rewind pretty far and then I'll get back up here to Toyota. But about 8 years ago, I had a hardware salesman that sold us stuff for the cabinetry, obviously. And he gave us 2 books to read. One was The Goal by Eliyahu M. Goldratt, and the other was 2 Second Lean. This is impact of 2 Second Lean, but 2 Second Lean by Paul Akers. The two together, one is basically, you have a bottleneck, find it and fix it. And the other one is, hey, just make something better every day, even if it only saves you 2 seconds. And what you're talking about with the medical industry there and your guys' focus, there were 2 huge quotes that jumped to mind from the lean world that all focus on the customer. One of the quotes from Taiichi Ono, who is kind of considered a father of lean. He was like second generation in the Toyota world there. He said, lean is all about taking the sale and the completion of that sale and shortening that timeline for the customer. And then the other quote that popped into my mind was everything that you do or have happen in your life is either a process or the outcome of a process. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're selling a house, guess what? You have a process. You have a pain point. Somebody needs a house. You have a process of trying to find the right house, and you have the outcome of getting that person in their house. So looking at that timeline and how to shorten it and best provide for your customer is really all lean is about. It's respecting the customer. It's respecting your employees. It's respecting everybody. So we've had a really super crazy journey with that. But I went to Japan with this guy, Paul Akers. He does a Japan study mission tour is what he calls it. You get to go out there and he's got a bus ready for you and you jump on that bus and he's got slideshows in the bus. There's literally zero downtime.
Max efficient.
He's like, this is a lean tour. This is not a tour of lean businesses. This is a lean tour. That's the big thing he pushes. So you jump on the bus. He's teaching, and we drive to a Toyota provider. We didn't actually make it all the way up to Toyota proper because it was during COVID time and they were pretty well shut down, but we were on the supply chain of Toyota, which they have some hand in all of that. So we started all the way down where the steel was rolled. And then the next day we moved up to where the steel was stamped. And then the next day we moved up to where they were putting some of the parts together in all of these different factories. It blew my mind. It was really funny because me and Paul chit chat about every week, and he knows me pretty well. I've been to his house in Washington State and had dinner with him. And he told me on the bus, he's like, Adam, you're usually a lot more talkative. Why are you so quiet? And I was like, 12 hours a day of just fire hose of information. How am I supposed to talk? I'm learning so much. And it really all just came back down to that respect for the customer again and looking at the process and making it as perfect as possible. That's all it comes down to.
And so you've adopted that in your practice and in your business. And I would venture to say you've probably experienced some significant growth because of that. Is that a true statement?
Absolutely. So when we first started, when I read those 2 books, I actually didn't sleep for about a week because it just clicked. I was like, oh my gosh, if we could just predict the amount of cabinets we make per day, we could actually give the customer a semi-genuine timeline, which in the construction world, as you know, because we had this chit chat, kind of doesn't exist. Most subs are like, yeah, I'll get there.
Yeah.
When? It's a great question. Friday or Monday is usually the answer, but they never tell you which Friday or Monday. It's just Friday or Monday, right?
Very important distinction.
So exactly. So I started breaking it down in my brain and I was like, all right, how many cabinets can I, Adam, build each day? Because at the time it was just me and a business partner for the first 4 years or so. And I was like, I could probably build 6, 7, 8, maybe. And I asked my business partner, I was like, dude, how many cabinets could you cut and build in a day? Just cut the parts for and assemble. And he didn't know what was going through my brain yet. And he's like, I don't know, maybe 10. And I was like, okay, he was way better than me at building cabinets. Super great craftsman. I was like, okay. So I started creating this little process where one day I would plan all of the cabinets that I wanted to work on. And then I would place orders on all of the hardware and stuff that I needed for that. And then I'd run out into the shop and I would build all the frames and stuff. And then the next day I would go paint all of the parts for those or stain them, right? And then on the third day, I would cut all of the box parts and put it all together and have a finished cabinet. When we switched from just doing the whole job, which is the way we used to do it, we would stain all the parts in one day. We would cut all the parts in one day. We would put all the cabinets together in some days.
Which was what you perceived to be efficient, probably.
Exactly. Because when you set a saw up, guess what you want to do? You want to run as many parts as you can on that saw because you set the saw up. You spent time setting that saw up. You don't want to waste time breaking it down. Same with like the paint and stain. I set the guns up today. I filled them full of polyurethane is what we use right now. Filled them full of polyurethane. There's no way I'm wasting this stuff. I'm going to spray it all. So it seems efficient to do that. And it seems counterintuitive to go, no, I can only build 8 cabinets a day. So I am only going to work on 8 cabinets right now. But what happened is we used to take, with just the 2 of us, somewhere between 2 and 3 months to build the cabinets for a job. Because we're talking multi-million-dollar homes and there's only 2 of us. And we're building the 100 plus cabinets per house. And it was like, holy cow, how are we supposed to do that? How are we supposed to estimate that? And no joke, we went from 2 to 3 months to 2 to 3 weeks instantly. Wow. Just by switching that. We didn't buy any machinery. We didn't hire any more people. We started seeing the gap in between us because we had 3 processes and 2 people. So we hired another person pretty quick after that. But instantly to go from 2 to 3 months, 3 to 4 months, depending on the size, down to 2 to 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. It's astounding. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's a 70% reduction essentially in time, which would be like a 300% increase in productivity is probably a better way of saying it. Fascinating. And then, I mean, did your business triple as would you say your top line revenue it increased at that?
So that was a big learning curve for businessman Adam. So I think one of the biggest things that we fail in life sometimes, we chit-chatted about this a little bit last time, was that entrepreneur mentality is not always in your brain, right? We talked about the E-Myth that Michael Gerber wrote and how me and my business partner had what Michael Gerber would call a entrepreneurial seizure, where we decided that we were good at building cabinets and we could build cabinets. Therefore, we could do it better than the other businesses we were working for. That's not how it works, right? The business has insurance and taxes and payroll and timelines, and you think you're like the business owner, but really all of a sudden all of your clients own you instead of one boss. So could I have tripled overnight? Potentially, if I had the sales, the exposure, the employees, the things, the tools to make it happen.
But you've grown like long term. You've increased significantly from what I remember.
We
right?
have, yes. Yeah. So over the long term, we've well outdone that triple, like well beyond that. But it's been a slow growth. So from that entrepreneur mindset, stepping back from the processes a little bit at a time and looking at it as a bigger puzzle, right? We had to start figuring out, okay, how do we use this capacity? We've figured it out. We have the capacity, which we're in a similar state right now. We just figured out a whole new, almost 30% addition to our capacity. And we're like, all right, how do we sell this now?
That's awesome. What are you guys doing right now revenue wise, if I can ask?
Revenue wise, we're usually at about 5 million a year, anywhere between 3 and 5, depends on the year. But my plan over the next year is to double that. Yeah,
fantastic, man. That's really, really good. And you are serving primarily the greater Salt Lake City Valley, or are you, and that's what I was going to talk about, sort of expanding, because are you guys looking to possibly sort of expand out beyond in the greater Rocky Mountain region?
Yeah, so right now we're mostly in St. George. We do service Salt Lake and basically that I-15 corridor. If you've ever looked at Utah, there's basically one road that goes north to south, and most of the towns are on that highway or that freeway. So we've worked all the way up into the Salt Lake area, which is about 4 hours away, and we've worked down towards Vegas, which is about an hour away from us. We are looking to expand beyond that. We're trying to find really good shipping partners, because just like a ready-to-assemble cabinet, RTA cabinet that you mentioned earlier, there's no reason you couldn't buy a custom cabinet from someone and have it delivered to your house. If you can give me your measurements and your colors and your handle choices, guess what? I can build you custom cabinets pretty easily. And then we just have to cross that bridge of having it shipped. So with that goal of doubling our throughput over the next year and our revenue, my goal eventually is to get myself out of being a subcontractor and becoming a true manufacturer, where I get to build and ship to anyone, anywhere. Because that's where the joy is for me, is seeing that final product in people's houses. And the faster I can do that for people, the better. Whereas right now as a subcontractor, I'm having to be pushed and pulled on the timelines of like a whole bunch of different contractors. So I can't quite service everybody at their leisure.
Do you work with countertop guys at all? Do you have like a solid relationship with a certain guys that you primarily work with, or how does that relationship work? The reason I ask, one of my best friends is a custom countertop guy in Florida. So anytime I have a cabinet question, I'm typically coming to him actually. And he's like, I'm a countertop guy, but do you have a group that you typically work with, or anybody?
Yeah. So obviously it comes down to the customer and the contractor who really decide that, but any sub that really shows any level of these core values that we like are people that we want to work with. And there are a couple in town. Countertop Source is the one that comes to mind most. And the reason for that is they're collaborative. They're willing to work and call us and say, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? One house we worked on with them, it was so massive that it was going to take us 3, almost 4 weeks to install the cabinets. And they happened to be working on that project. And I called them and I was like, hey, man, this is going to take me a really long time. And the customer's not very happy that you're going to wait until I'm done to come template and then start the process of putting the countertops in, because it's going to make their project drag out another 2 weeks. And they were like, okay, well, let's see what we can do. And they were so collaborative that we figured out that if I planned my cabinets based on their type of stone, they would be willing, each time I got done with a certain batch of cabinets, to come template those, because they were cutting that batch of cabinets or that batch of countertops out of a certain specific stone. And they really pride themselves on making sure those stones look perfect. The hues are just right. There's no when you get a white countertop, sometimes you can see a little green, a little blue, a little pink. They pride themselves on making sure that's perfect. So they were really awesome to come in and take a chunk of the house and get it done while we're moving on and doing the same thing. So they would be the first one that comes to mind. And basically any sub that's willing to collaborate and move the project forward more seamlessly is somebody we want to work with.
Well, and it sounds like, you were the one that made the phone call to kind of help. You got the pulse on the owner, and you sensed that they were a little, even though they were happy they were getting a new kitchen and new countertops and everything, they obviously weren't able to and hadn't been able to express that or communicate that effectively to your peer there. So that's awesome. And which that's kind of the way I like to do things is, hey, at the end of the day, if there's another business owner, another operator that's in my market, that's working with me, how can we solve the problem? That's 90% of what business is. It's just solving problems. And if we're doing it in the most efficient way possible, the more value we bring, the more business we're going to bring. And so I'm a huge fan of collaborating with vendors, collaborating with my peers even to kind of help move the needle down the road. So that's awesome, man. Tell me about your experience with our main man, Dan Martell. Let's shift into him before we wrap up, because I absolutely love Dan Martell. How did you find him? How did you find Dan Martell?
Yeah, so I'm kind of old school. I do not like Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. I'm only 37, but I'm going to tell you a really weird story to kind of like set it off. I'm only 37, born in 1987. My parents, we weren't super wealthy. I still had black and white TVs with the 13 channel dial on the side growing up.
Nice. The rabbit ears.
I remember getting our first microwave. Like a lot of things that were like 2 generations before me. But I've kind of grown up with that mindset. And because I do have kind of a large family, anytime I get into that world of like social media, I get drawn away from what's most important, which is my family. So I actually found Dan by word of mouth, which is the way I usually do business for just about anything. I had a guy. So this guy, Paul Akers, does a thing called a Lean Summit every year where we go visit some business in some part of the world that is exceptional. And we went to Ireland last year and visited a couple businesses. And one of the guys there, I made friends with pretty quickly thereafter. We actually stayed after the 2-day conference and went motorcycling around Ireland for 3 days, which was a freaking blast. And one of the guys, he was so awesome. And I was like, dude, you should come visit me and just like, give me some guidance. Like a detached perspective is always extremely helpful because when you're in your own world, your mind gets so focused on your problems that you don't see all of your other problems.
That's why it's so important to have a coach, right?
Exactly. So I brought this Irish guy over to the US, hung out with him. He hung out with us for about a week. And at the end of that week, he slides me a book and says, here, read this. And what book was it, you may ask?
Buy Back Your Time. Nice.
Yeah. He was like, hey, he's like, I know that you are hesitant to spend a bunch of money. There it is on machines, but you need to read this book so that you can kind of start to understand what we're talking about. So I read the book, and I am that crazy guy because that Irish guy is also an author of a book. It's called Improvement Starts with I, which is super great. Give it a listen sometime. I'm that crazy guy who will, in fact, chase down the author and find out who they are, where they are, what they are, and try to get close to them so I can gain whatever it is. So as soon as I read that book, I was like, holy crap, I got to meet this guy. And obviously, Dan's at a completely different level than most of us. So I chased him down, found the coaching program, and I was like, yeah, I think this feels right. And I talked to my wife about it. And I was like, hey, this is kind of a decent investment. It's something I've never done before. I mean, I do have all these guys that I lean on as mentors, but this is kind of next level crazy. And my wife was just like, it feels right. Let's do it. So jumped in and immediately met people like you, which is why we're here. And like, it's been amazing. The one thing I was scribbling down these notes, right? When you were talking in a couple of your YouTube videos about customer service and helping people understand if the furniture can fit, spending good money on your photos for a quality representation and just acting like a pro, it made me think of one of Dan's comments that has been like ringing in my head ever since I started the program, where somebody asked him like, hey, what's the difference between 10 years ago when you started tinkering in the, Instagram world and now where you're just like spiking? And Dan was logical about it. He's like, well, duh, I've been in it 10 years, which is why I'm now spiking. But he did mention, he's like, you know what? One day I just woke up and decided to be an effing professional. And I was like, oh, crap. That's it. It's that level of just like, it's time.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is awesome, man. And it's in the moment of decision that your destiny is shaped, right? That's actually a Tony Robbins quote. It's actually right there on my wall. That's what that sign says right there. It's in the moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. That's awesome, man. So you literally, like, you'll read a book if it harmonizes with you or like, vibes with you, you're going to find the author. And so you literally because you're like traveling to the, Ireland and Japan with this guy who wrote this book. And that's amazing. Yeah.
I remember when I first read this guy's book, that was one of the first things I did. I was like, hey, he lives in Washington State. That's not that far away. So I immediately jumped on and scheduled a tour of his shop. And he wasn't there that time, and I was kind of frustrated. I was like, gosh dang it. So I scheduled another one, and I contacted him directly, and I was like, are you going to be there? And he's like, yeah. I was like, can I take you out to dinner or something? And I talked to him long enough, and he's like, you know what? Just come to my house for dinner. And I was like, yes, that's what I want right there.
That is awesome. Paul Aker.
Yep. He's a good dude. Yeah. Excellent dude.
Very cool. What does he manufacture?
So he manufactures gadgets and gizmos for construction people. So I actually found him through that hardware salesman, and immediately thereafter found all of the products that he makes. His business is called Fast Cap, which a Fast Cap it's his original invention, because he was originally a contractor and a cabinet maker. His original invention were these teeny little white sticker caps that you put in the back of a cabinet to cover up the screw hole. Yeah, that was his first invention. And now he basically runs a business just creating and selling those types of things. And it's really cool because he's created this like environment in this group, in this community, where people like myself will create something and be like, dude, Paul, I think this is a viable product. And you pitch it to him. And if he takes it and runs with it, he'll give you 5% royalties for life with 0 questions. And so, yeah, he's got a lot of awesome inventions because he's got a lot of awesome people following him. And the one thing I had noted like that too about you and about me is once I found Paul and I read his books and I learned about him and I learned what his core values were and the respect and the quality and the customer care, it almost doesn't matter what business I look at that has a similar product. I'm going to default to buying Paul's stuff because we jive so much on all of those core values, right? And I find it similar with you. Like we found quality, customer service, customer education, respect. These are all the things I've noted about you that I'm like, yeah, that's who we try to be too. So that, I think it's this weird deep thing where we understand that customers don't necessarily buy products. They buy feelings, right? And those feelings really do come from this weird, deep-seated value.
You can't have motion without emotion, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Dan, that's a Dan quote for sure. But it's like, if you can't speak the customer's language, that honestly, most people don't know how to vocalize it. They just have feelings, right? It's a gut feel. But really, it's some value that they have that you're speaking to. And if you find the people who speak your value, it is a super mutually beneficial relationship. Because guess what? Hal, you need to make money. How do you make money? You sell homes. Well, people need homes. And how do they get those homes? Hal is a professional. I can see it in all of the things that he does. Hal is a pro. He has decided to be an effing pro. So you go see Hal, and he's going to fix that pain point of you needing a home. And he's going to find the best home at the best price in the best location. And he's going to, if you're selling it, he's going to stage it and he's going to set the price right so that it creates a little bit of buzz. And he's going to make things happen because his values are connected to the customer. And I think that's something we all strive for.
That's awesome, man. Adam, I appreciate that, man. I got to tell you, rewind a 45 seconds or so. Paul Aker, I now know exactly who you're talking about, and I follow him on YouTube. He actually has a YouTube channel. And yeah. And I remember whenever I saw the whole lean, I think I found him through Upflip. Are you familiar with Upflip, the YouTube channel? It's a guy that's also in Seattle, or I think he's in the Northwest. He's got a entrepreneurial focused channel. And he actually had Paul Aker on it. And I actually, too, kind of like you, I kind of got into his stuff because from my past world on the lean, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And to see all the stuff that Paul is doing is just, it blew my mind. But no, that's amazing. So you did this kind of a similar thing, except with Dan, which is how we met, which is incredible. I'm loving Dan. How are your 5 daily non-negotiables going, Adam?
That's not hard at all. The only hard part for me was the Instagram stuff because, again, I shy away from that. I'm not 100% sure why. I've been reciting this poem to myself every day about, not shirking and being your best self kind of thing, because I'm like, is it a weird insecurity I have? I don't know. Maybe. I'm pretty personable. I'm not super shy. But putting myself out there was always a weird thing. But it hasn't been hard at all because I was always into Miracle Mornings, read that book and implemented that.
Oh, I love Hal Wilkerson. Yeah, that's good.
So most of them were already built into my life. My wife is a badass and she's done 75 hard, I don't know how many times, 10 or something like that.
Wow.
So we do that quite often. She's pregnant right now with the 5th and we're doing it again anyways. And, she kind of helps me pull that rope tight. So a couple of those daily non-negotiables are, a 45-minute walk and 10 pages, which is really easy. In fact, I grabbed this book open, Andre Agassi, because that was on Dan's list of things to read, and it's been amazing. So those were all pretty easy for me. And then the Instagram stuff, I actually hired a local Instagram coach guy just to make sure that I did keep myself accountable to that. And it's been pretty fun. To be 100% honest, I kind of flipped that switch. I was like, all right, whatever, let's run with this. Let's figure this out. And it's been enjoyable.
It's been a game changer for me. The biggest thing is that consistency, of having a plan. And I actually, whenever I first got into the program or the coaching program, I was just thinking okay, how can I remember that? Well, namely, I wrote them on my board. So they're on my board now. So it's easy for me to remember them. But I came up with the acronym GREAT, because there's basically 5 things. You check your goals 3 to 5 times a day. That's the G. You read 10 pages every day, and that's obviously going to help you develop. You exercise 45 minutes every day. And I love how Dan's just like, dude, no need to take a rest day. You just need to exercise every day, which is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're going to go harder some days than others, but at any rate, then the A is, I call it A for advertising, but basically that's posting, because you got to do that. People are watching this because they found us on social media, because they're watching YouTube, because they're watching a video stream on LinkedIn, whatever. That's how they found it. But, you do that. That's the A. And then the T is the texting. So, Dan is a big, sell by chat guy. That's not been one of my strong suits, but the fact that he has, your goal, you're reaching out to 5 people, you're doing 5 opens every day. It's for me, I'm a systems guy, right? So it's okay, this is finally a framework, like what Dan does. He talks about a framework. Everything that he does is systemized, lean, efficient framework. And for me, it's dude, this is finally what I'm looking for, that I can sort of bolt into my professional life and my personal life to both help me improve personally and professionally. And for me, it's just been it's been really good. So I've got my streak going that I track on my wall and everything. And it's valuable. It's very, very valuable. So
yeah, it doesn't matter what you call it. If you call it lean manufacturing, if you call it just being smart, or honestly, pardon my French, giving a shit, that's it kind of doesn't matter what you call it. But if you create a system and you stick to it and you're persistent, you're going to succeed. And we are living in a weird, different day and age where, social media platforms is how you sell. Like, you're not going to put your name on a billboard very much anymore because nobody really looks at them. TV is basically non-existent. It's streaming now. My sister works for the radio, and poor soul, I don't want to tell her that like nobody listens anymore, but I'm always on Apple Music. Like, how do people find you? Well, right here. And that was an interesting conversation I had with Paul Akers just this last weekend. I was like, dude, I found you through your YouTube videos, and now I'm your customer because of that, which is now why I'm like, okay, I'll take this Dan stuff and I'll jump into it. This is how I keep track of that. This is something I took from Darren Hardy. If you've ever listened to that dude, he's pretty amazing. He's got what he calls a rhythm register. And I've just created my own version of it because I just found what worked for me. But this is my current big, hairy, audacious goal, and then my month goal. And then I break it down into some week goals. And then these are the daily non-negotiables plus a few other goals that I have. So you can see we're crushing the 5 opens. We're at 12 and 14 so far instead of 5 and 5. And that's just because I was like, all right, let's do this.
That is awesome, man. Are you counting on your opens? Are you only counting Instagram messaging? Are you counting emails? Are you counting texts? How are you? Any changes on that? I'm just curious.
As of right now, it's just Instagram. And that's just because between Dan and my local like coach guy, I was like, all right, if this is how you sell these days, I'm going to hone in on it. So obviously I'm still finding people the way I like to find people, which is word of mouth and, walking around and talking to people, which I think comes from, I'm LDS, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I served a 2-year mission in Brazil. And you have to walk around and knock on people's doors and get to know them. I would have considered myself a shy person before that, but 2 years of knocking on people's doors to get to know them and try to talk to them about Jesus Christ and sell them on something that's amazing for their life, it broke me out of my shell.
Yeah, that's good. You learn a lot about people. You learn a lot about yourself. I don't know if I shared with you, but I actually paid my way through college knocking on doors in the summertime. And so
there you go.
I am no stranger to the door knocking. And it was funny that changed a lot for me. And honestly, I truly believe that helped contribute to the success that I carry with me today in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And it makes you like people. Like, obviously, you've got a lot of people who are going to slam the door in your face and tell you to go away. But you realize that most people in this world are kind, loving people. And they might not want to give you the time of day, but they might at least offer you a drink or something before you leave. Like, people are just good. I love people. I'm
the same way, Adam. I got to tell you a funny story, and then we should probably wrap up because I think you've got to get to hockey, right, for your kids.
I do. It's hockey night for the kids.
I was sitting in, I think it was American history, my sophomore or junior year of college. And I come from a different faith background than you, and just Protestant Christian church. And I had, after having spent at least one summer or 2 summers, I forget what year it was, of just in people's homes, knocking on their doors, I'd come to that realization. Generally, people are nice. They're kind. Whenever you speak with them, whenever you approach them, people just in general are nice, are kind, are good. The professor posed a question to the class, and perhaps I misunderstood it, but he essentially said, are people generally good? And I kid you not, Adam, I was the only one in the entire class that raised my hand, and I said yes. And how do I know that? Is because I've been in 3,000 homes in the last 12 weeks, So I've seen a thing or two. Not one of them were expecting me to come, but I knocked on their door and introduced myself, and they welcomed me in, and we had a conversation. And by and large, of course, there's some real a-holes out there, right? But 99 out of 100 were pretty darn nice people once you got to know them. And that's how, and I think that's how, I think he was asking more, he was positioning more from like a spiritual standpoint than he was from like just a personal standpoint. But I kid you not, like that whole class was like, Hal, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, well, I got 3,000 homes that I've been in the last 3 months that will say different, And, but I agree with you. That's funny, Adam.
Yeah, I think honestly that comes from, and especially nowadays, it's accentuated not knowing people, right? In doubt and ambiguity lies a lot of worries and stress and misunderstandings. We can text and communicate or email or direct message, and the amount of information that can be between the lines and on either end, right? Like you could read a text from me and interpret a ton of aggression, but if you could see my face, you would see all smiles. So like all those people in your class, they didn't go knock on 99 doors. So they're probably thinking, oh yeah, those 99 people don't really like me. I saw them once and they had a frown on their face, right? But you're out there with facts saying, no, I've knocked on their door. I've been in their house. They're good people. And I think that's true for the majority. 3,000, holy crap. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, we did like 20 a day is typically what we would do. 20 homes a day. And but yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's like you can't argue with facts. But I think that's another good point is so many people don't take the time to have a real authentic conversation. People don't want to pick up the phone. They only want to text. You know, there's a lot that comes from a phone conversation, you know, because you just get that sense of, well, what is that person saying? How are they? What is their tone of voice? What is their, you know, how are they speaking? You know, what that does not come across. And I don't care what the new Apple iOS 18 with the new fancy SMS features or whatever that it has on it. It doesn't matter. It's still, that does and can increase a little bit, but it still doesn't make or break the importance of a good old fashioned person to person phone call or face to face meeting. So interesting times we live in.
Yeah, we actually had that experience just today. We've got a contractor, our favorite contractor, honestly, that we're working with on a big, huge parade home. And there seemed to be some struggle and frustration. So me and the owner of the other business were like, all right, let's get our people together and have lunch and just make sure that this stuff never happens again. And it's crazy how quickly it dispels. Like it went from some tension to eating lunch and chit-chatting and joking within seconds. And we created a couple processes to make sure it didn't happen again. But guess what? We got right back to being people who care about each other.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about. That's what it was all about. If you are in the Salt Lake City, Rocky Mountain area, and you need a cabinet or you need custom cabinets, talk to my man, Adam at Prestige Woodworks. He would be, I know you'd be just an excellent consultant, but you can provide some real value, some real insights, and an excellent product, especially in the St. George metro area right there. I've got a lot of friends that are in Utah, actually. So I'm sure hopefully some of them will hear me and reach out to you, good sir. But thank you so much, Adam, for being on the show with me today, good sir. It's an absolute pleasure. I am truly, authentically looking forward to getting to know you better as the years go by, good sir. Yeah.
As well. And just so you know, I think you already know this, but this is my first, you're my first, Hal. So thank you. Thank you for being my first podcast ever.
You're starting
it was really fun.
I'm happy to say I knew you win. I knew you win.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, yes, that is it. So thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed it. Yes, contact me for any cabinet needs. I have people contact me from all over the U.S., and I'm happy to help them. In fact, I searched out somebody in Michigan to try to find a good cabinet company for them the other day. And obviously, if you're looking for property in Hawaii, Hal's your man. His core values are strong. You can find them in all of his YouTube and Instagram videos, and he obviously cares about people.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate that, Adam. Truly, man. Truly. All right, bro. Take care. It's been a pleasure. I hope your kids have great hockey games. All righty.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Hal.
Okay. Yep. Talk soon, brother.